let's give this a shot. Believe I'm displaying now, so this is me starting in Aeon's Endgame for people who are interested. Gonna keep this simple. This is just a quick demonstration of what an average Aeon's Endgame looks like for me, just to make sure that people who are interested in learning the game or who have trouble playing the game might have an idea of how I go about things. I think I'm a reasonable player and that I've got a decent win rate. I'll honestly have to look at my statistics later. I imagine since I dump a lot of games, they might not be quite accurate, but we'll find out. Alrighty. I'll give it a couple of minutes before I start, just in case anyone does want to watch. Otherwise, I will be all set. For now, I'll just get started setting up the characters involved. Oh, looks like the screen is a little bit... Nope, that's fine. So, for anyone who's not really familiar with it all, this is Aeon's End. It is a deck builder in which you are playing breach mages trying to defend Gravehold from the nameless crazy things that are basically going to try to destroy everything. This is the digital version from Handelambra, and it is quite good for just playing with the basic setup. The physical board game has a lot more both expansions and standalone pieces, but this is a good way of seeing if you enjoy the game. I'm going to assume that people who are watching have some experience with the game. So if I do need to clarify anything, please go ahead and mention it in chat. Otherwise, I will just go with the random setup. I have been playing with Extinction recently just to see about what I'm capable of. Extinction is the hardest difficulty and uses increased difficulty rules. They are sort of the exception rather than the rule because you'll need to do a whole bunch of crazy things. 3 is generally an easy number to play with, so 3 players is probably the easiest with how the wildcard works if you know what you're doing, but 2 players is usually fine. I will go ahead and use Adelheim and Jian, who are generally a fairly strong combination. Adelheim is defensive and very good at economy. Jian is very, very, very offensive. I went with a random supply, but this is honestly a fairly good setup for a variety of things. It doesn't have any single gem that's worth a lot of ether, which is the money involved, but it should be good enough. And just since this is a quick demonstration, I'll be playing against Rageborne. Adelheim's up first. So this is the turn order deck. For those who are familiar with Aeon's End, it's how the turn order is shown. Every person will be displayed accordingly. For those who aren't familiar, in 2 players, every mage has 2 of these icons, and Rageboard has 2 icons. It's randomly determined who goes per sequence. In order to do any damage, you have to use these spells. Spells go into breaches, and you can cast them in the future turn. I'm a little bit disappointed that Adelheim got first turn because of exactly how the Amethyst Shard worked, but it's not a massive deal breaker here. Going to just play all my gems. Note that normally Adelheim's unique gem lets someone else draw and then discard a card. I can make some use of that with Jian, but right now, since we don't have a 5-cost gem, it's not the strongest, so I don't think it's strictly necessary, and it gives me no improvement, so I'm going to skip that. The other thing Adelheim wants to do early on is just get a breach open so a couple of sparks can park their way there. At the end of the turn, everything is discarded, and then it's next player's turn, in this case, Jian's. Jian is very offensive. She starts with 2 open breaches for putting spells in, and doesn't have as much Aether as a result. However, her unique setup does mean she starts with a Moonstone Shard, which can only be used for gems. There are 2 main ways for me to sort of go about trying to set this up. The first is if I get Searing Ruby, I can buy a 6 cost spell almost immediately next turn, which is for Wildfire Whip. That's good for early offensive, but not great as good for economy. The other thing I can do is I can try to pair up a couple of diamonds, which is going to be my preferred route. They will let me get some big spells later on, and I'm going to be going for Arcane Nexus, which is a very powerful spell. Normally this is only 3 ether, but Jian's unique lets her get one more for gems, which is how I'm affording this cluster. Adelheim again. Now normally you can cast these spells to do damage. Adelheim is very unique in that I don't like casting early spells because the less I cast, the more I can get some early economy going for exactly how he draws cards. I'll show you how this looks, but to summarize, I'm also going to be going for a couple of early diamonds. This leaves me a little bit weak on the offense front, but in this case, I'm willing to take a little bit more of a risk to get things moving. Actually, scratch that. He can get a turn 3 Nurxus because of the way his unique setup works, so I'm just going to go for this Ruby instead. Unleash Greyfold suffers 3. Not much I can do about that. Greyfold takes damage. If Greyfold hits 0, then I lose. John's turn 1. Sparks. I need to clear out these breaches, so I do cast these sparks so I can put these additional sparks in play. I only have 3 gems here. I have 2 main options. If I wanted a big purchase next turn, I could just get a Rizzwood Amber, which would 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, enough for an Arcane Nexus. If that is fairly tempting, if a little bit slow. I think I do go for that. My other option would be to start Destruction You with an Unstable Prism this turn and then just go for the double Diamond Cluster next turn. But given the current setup, I think the early offense is warranted, so I'm going to go for the Amber. The main reason I'm okay with this is because Diamond Clusters give you 2 Ether, but, I'll go back. Agony Field, get rid of a card in order to stop it. It's Unleash any player discards 3 and draws 1. That's annoying, but okay. Another Fury. Apparently Rageborne is just very persistent right now. Normally this would have me destroy a card that costs 2 or more to get rid of it. Otherwise Rageborne gets a Fury, which will lead to bad things, and then someone discards 3 and draws 1. I'm not too concerned about the discard and draw, although it is a little inconvenient, but I think destroying a card that costs 2 or more is too much of an early hit. Now, once again, I am not casting these sparks. Adelheim really does not want to early on if possible because of how thin his deck is. So, watch as I just do that. And we'll go ahead and play all of these. Again, I don't think I want Jian to draw because that will interfere with her ability to purchase. And that is enough for the Arcane Nexus. Arcane Nexus is just a very powerful spell in general. I'm going to be seeing that next turn, which is not perfect, but honestly good enough for what I'm going to be doing for most of my economy as well as a good deal of damage. In this case, as mentioned, I'm going to have Adelheim discard 3 and draw 1. This is actually a little bit better because of the Nexus. Woven Sky, discard 3 in hand, otherwise damage and that. That's a Rageborne Strike. Whenever Rageborne has 4 or more Fury or otherwise is indicated, Rageborne strikes. In this case, Rageborne deals the mage with the lowest life 2 damage. I'm going to go ahead and let Jian suffer it in this case. If all mages hit 0 HP, then you lose. If one mage hits 0 HP, they're exhausted, which triggers a bunch of bad stuff. You don't like it, but it's not the end of the game for them. They're still in there. Alright. Now, still Adelheim's turn. I'm not going to be buying off Woven Sky because Jian has a couple of turns to deal with that, and because this is a very important setup turn for me. I can get Arcane Nexus out. Arcane Nexus lets me basically play a gem twice for the turn by giving it back after I play it. In this case, 2 Searing Rubies is worth 6 Ether for spells. The Crystal is worth 7 Ethers for spells. I can get another Arcane Nexus. This will basically set me up for almost anything I need to do in the future. It's also a good amount of damage once I start firing them off. Now this is Jian's turn. As previously mentioned, I don't want to fire these sparks unless I have to, and I'm just going to play everything. And get an Arcane Nexus with Jian. With the timing of how this works, this means that diamond clusters will be able to effectively play twice every turn. And how diamond clusters work is they're worth 2, but they're worth an additional 2 if you manage to play a diamond cluster twice in a turn. Obviously, that is a pretty big deal here. Now, I am going to buy off the Woven Sky. It's more damage than I'd like. And this 3 Ether, while nice, is not going to be the end of the game if I can't have it. So I'm just going to go ahead and use that to toss out Woven Sky. Adelheim's turn. I could keep the Arcane Nexus, which would let me get a little more. At the moment, it's probably worth me keeping, if only so I can deal with a large creature. I will have another one coming next turn, so I'm not too concerned. Let's see. I don't think there's any particular rush for me to go for a double Amethyst Shard, although I could discard a Spark. That's probably worth it. So she's going to draw, discard a Crystal, take that back, draw, discard that Spark. Now, I do have 6 Ether. I have 2 main good targets for it. The first is I can clear away some things with a couple of unsealed prisms. I can get another offensive spell with Wildfire Whip. At this stage, I'm going to go for the prisms. I'm a little bit economy heavy, but that should resolve itself shortly. Note that because of exactly how this is oriented, I will have a crystal in there, so I will go ahead and just toss a shard and the rest of my crystals. That should line up properly. Here's Rageborne with a Provoker. Provoker deals damage based on the number of Fury tokens. That is not too much right now, so it'll deal a little bit of damage to Gravehold, but it's better to deal with it earlier rather than later. There's that. Here's an Arcane Nexus. Here's 2 for the Diamond Cluster, and as I mentioned, if you play a second one, you get a total of 4 because of the 2 extras, meaning you get 6 from it. It's very worthwhile. Here is everything else. I have 2 main ways I can spend this. Opening up a breach is a good way of getting some additional damage, or I can just buy something. I don't think I have quite enough cleared for right now, but with the total combination, I think I'm going to go for a Prism and another Arcane Nexus. That is almost all of the spells I will need. I'll probably get a Wildfire Whip or 2 in, but anything else is just icing on the cake. Let me see. With the current timing of it, yep, it makes sense for me to toss the Diamond Cluster first. Yeah, Arcane Nexus is kind of one of the strongest base cards, and I end up using it a whole lot in whenever it shows up. It takes a little bit of finagling in order to actually afford it sometimes, but it's enough. I could buy more, but right now I think I am satisfied just taking a couple of charges. Jian's charges are actually very powerful in that she can use her ability to cast a spell twice rather than once and do it basically whenever you need it. Rageborne strikes. That happens sometimes. It is just a strike. Fury will go down after, but Rageborne apparently just doesn't like Gravehold right now. Adelheim's turn. I do start throwing the Arcane Nexuses. It is worth a lot of Aether, but I don't need it that much. And I will cast the Spark this time. I am going to see about opening these shortly, but it's not super urgent. In this case, I will go ahead and get a Wildfire Whip. Or I can just get more charges. I think with the economy set, I'm not too concerned. I think I take the middle of the line approach and just, no, I don't need more economy with 2 more unstable prisms. So I am just going to go for the charges. Yep, Jian's got a Arcane Nexus in hand, so I can't afford to cast this one and just keep cycling. I'm not going to cast the Spark. Again, I don't want to cast a Spark if I can help it. Here's an unstable prism, playing this twice to destroy it. Crystals and sparks are usually things you want out of your deck. Destruction is one of the easiest ways to get them out, but keeping sparks in a breach is fairly similar. Let me see. Does Jian have a good draw? She has a good draw, but not one that's necessary, so I'm just going to go ahead and play this for the Ether alone. Or rather to cycle. Again, play this twice, it'll go away, and I will go ahead and give a couple of charges for Ethereal World. Ethereal Ward is very powerful. It prevents a power or attack from being played. It won't stop any minions, but Ethereal Ward basically lets you cancel out a Nemesis's turn if you're doing well, and that is an incredible preventive measure. Let's see, there's 9 here, so... Yep, makes sense for me to put prisms out first and then sort of add a buffer. The main reason to watch out for where you put prisms is to make sure that you actually stack them in a way where they always have a crystal to go with them when destroying. You can use them for a burst of ether, but since there were 2 ether or just playing them for ether, it's generally not necessary. Jian's turn. I'm going to do a whole lot of casting because I need the space. And Prism is a little awkward here. Not much I can do about that at this stage. I can either just get this ready, or I can attempt to get some breaches open for later. I think a middle-of-the-road approach is appropriate here, and I think that I just keep the Prism in hand so that... yep, that'll make for a good pairing later on. But it does mean that I won't be able to cast this. Yeah, I think I can take the risk. Simply casting this twice now will get a good chunk of damage in and lets me keep the space clear while also keeping the prism. Whoops. I forgot to spend the last 2 ether. Oh well. Pulverizing Ray. Pulverizing Ray will basically kill a whole bunch of crystals or other gems. It's kind of annoying, but I think Rayvold is doing well enough that I don't try to burn Ethereal Ward on it. As mentioned, I will go ahead and discard a whole bunch of gems. It's a little awkward because of the wasted prism, but I find that an acceptable loss. And I'll let Gravehold suffer the last one just so I'm able to get a little bit of money off of this particular Nexus. Unleash twice, any player suffers 2. Again, not terrible enough that I think I try to ward it. Note that I could double this, but since it's only worth 2, there's really no special reason to use that. Again, it's a little bit more awkward, but I think I don't have any strong need to play this turn. So I will go ahead and just play this twice in order to get a bit more. Not a particularly exciting turn for Adelheim, but have a Nexus, we'll cast. You can see right now Rageborne is already at 40 health. I did get lucky in that I haven't seen too many minions out at the moment. So in particular, the most important thing is that I didn't see too many in tier 1, which would have eaten up some of my damage, but obviously with 40 health down, it's not enough that it would be problematic. Gonna prep the Nexus. Gonna double play this. And yep, I'm going to go ahead and use an unstable prism in order to get rid of a crystal. I have 2 main options. I can obviously go for even more spell power, which is reasonable since Adelheim's is full and there's no particular need to burn it, or I can just start getting the breaches set up. Let me see. There's only one there, so pretty much everything I discard is gonna go into the discard, meaning I'm fine with just playing this, just cycle through and make sure I keep on seeing new cards in time. Um, I will go ahead and just give this a couple of focuses so that I can easily open in the future. The exact order here didn't matter that much because I should draw everything. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and cast. I will have enough to fully charge up, and that's everything I'm just going to keep for later. Yes, the extra Aether is not necessary, but I have plenty to work with here. Yeah, Jian is basically, if you have any single spell on anybody that does a lot of damage, she can do a lot of work just charging up. And honestly, I think Jian's main weakness is her breach setup is very difficult to work with, so you have to be careful about it. But it's not so problematic that you can just have to sort of lag. Go ahead and Nexus here because Jian has her own Nexus, and there are enough sparks and the opportunity to basically get enough extra things that I'm not too concerned. Finish casting here. Play through that. I do apologize if I'm a little slow to look at chat. I don't always turn in time to notice it if I'm focused. Yeah, there's no particular need to try to get through. I could cycle Jian in order to get her moving. Actually, that probably makes sense. She'll draw and just chuck the spark since there's not enough room, and I think the little bit of extra ether can help more. And now I've got that open for a little bit more damage as I go. 5, 6, yeah, pretty much anything I discard is just going to be in the right order because of how thin my deck's gotten. Unstable Prism's probably my favorite early thinning mechanism. Awaken either summons things or places something back in. I don't need to cancel it because I could honestly place Provoker back in. Worst case is it deals 2 damage to Gravehold before I kill it. It's only a real problem if multiple show up. Nope. This is any player suffers 1 damage plus 1 more for each Rageborne has. Again, I could click this, but between the amount of economy I have to actually cancel it normally and the fact that it's a total of 3 damage with the Unleash, I'm not too concerned right now. I'd rather keep an eye on other things. Jian's turn. In this case, I am going to go ahead and cast this Spark. It's not necessary, but it'll allow me to focus my Arcane Nexus a little bit more efficiently. Here's the Nexus. Here's this for the diamond. And here's the other 2. Note that I do it in this order because this is already charged, and this will allow me to double cast Arcane Nexus, then simply charge up again. There's that. And there's that. There is a Nexus in here. There's no matching diamond. I hope Adelheim can help make that a little bit smoother, but otherwise, it is what it is. Doesn't need it. In this case, I will go ahead and just play this normally. My deck is thin enough, and I can also just get rid of that, which is probably a better use than something else. Here's this, play, bounce back, play, and this in order to destroy this. Of particular note is that while I can cast Aldeheim's Arcane Nexus for additional damage, I'd actually prefer to cast Jian's own if possible. It's one of those little things that adds up over time is if at all possible when using cast effects you try to target your own because that actually keeps a good spell sort of in circulation. If you want to cast a spark someone else's is fine, but the more you can keep casting your own spells faster the better. And order doesn't matter here. I hope I still have enough things I need to chuck. Needlemaw. Little bit of a threat, but Needlemaw has 11 HP, Rageborne has 19 HP. We're hitting the stage where I have enough of a buffer that I just go right for Rageborne's face. Especially given... Well, that wasn't even necessary, but... A few more good shots will do the trick here. Yeah, that's going to be plenty. 4 charges or unleash 4 times. Power 2. I may as well burn this. I don't think anything else is going to be there in time. Here's Adelheim. And yes, I could have just used Adelheim in order to pay off the 4 charges. Hindsight is kind of like that. 5. I could cast these sparks. I don't even need to. A shot from either player will basically do it, and Jian has enough Aether for a Black Mirror. And at this stage, things are just secure enough that I'm not going to worry too much about it. So, unless things go catastrophic, I think this is all set. Things did not go catastrophic, and this is all set. So, 12 cards left in the Nemesis deck. We were still another turn or two away from Tier 3. That is what a good game looks like for me. I did pick... Random did get fairly strong mages, and Arcane Nexus is still bonkers, but that is basically what it looks like when I have a good day. Thanks for watching. Hopefully there isn't any obvious question that needs explaining. If not, feel free to leave a comment or otherwise contact me and I will try my best to respond. Thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed.